Consistency. It's the quiet engine behind every extraordinary success you've ever admired. Not talent. Not luck. Not motivation. Just consistency, small actions repeated so relentlessly that they eventually reshape a person's entire destiny. And yet, it's the one thing almost everyone struggles with. Why? Because consistency is not exciting. Consistency is not dramatic. Consistency doesn't give instant rewards. Consistency demands something people avoid: steadiness. But here's the truth that almost no one tells you: ordinary people become extraordinary not through rare moments of greatness, but through repeated moments of discipline. Ordinary people turn into champions, leaders, innovators, and success stories simply by showing up when others stop. Talent gives you a head start. Motivation gets you moving. But consistency decides who stays in the race long enough to win. Think about anyone who has achieved something incredible. A successful entrepreneur. A world-class athlete. A skilled musician. A respected writer. A financially disciplined investor. None of them got there through bursts of passion or random sparks of inspiration. They became great because they made average days count. Because they showed up on the days they didn't want to. Because they worked when no one was clapping. Because they built habits that aligned with the future they wanted, not the mood they were in. And that's the first truth about consistency: it is far more about your identity than your environment. People think they need motivation to be consistent. But motivation is emotional, fleeting, unpredictable, unreliable. Motivation may start the journey, but consistency finishes it. The people who get extraordinary results don't rely on motivation, they rely on routines. On systems. On daily commitments that don't negotiate with their feelings. If you only act when you feel good, you will never achieve anything great. Success is not emotional, it's mechanical. You repeat the right actions long enough, and results become unavoidable. But here's the deeper truth: consistency isn't just about doing something every day. It's about becoming the kind of person who does. It's identity-driven. It's internal. And once consistency becomes part of who you are, massive progress becomes natural, not forced. Inconsistent people think in days. Consistent people think in decades. Inconsistent people seek intensity. Consistent people master repetition. Inconsistent people wait for the right moment. Consistent people create momentum. And this is the difference between ordinary effort and extraordinary results. Extraordinary people aren't superhuman, they're simply committed. They build daily habits that stack over time until the world calls them talented. In this script, we are going deep into the psychology, the science, the behavior patterns, and the mindset shifts that turn inconsistency into unstoppable momentum. You're going to learn exactly how ordinary people use simple routines to build extraordinary lives, and why your daily habits matter far more than your goals. Because goals give direction, but habits determine destination. If consistency is the secret ingredient behind every extraordinary achievement, then why do so many people struggle with it? Why do we start strong, motivated, excited, only to fall off track days or weeks later? The answer is deeper than most people realize, and it lies in how the human brain is wired. You're not inconsistent because you're weak or lazy. You're inconsistent because your brain is designed to avoid change. Your brain's primary job is survival, not success. It loves routines, but only the ones you've already built. It clings to familiarity, even if that familiarity holds you back. When you try to build a new habit, wake up early, work out daily, read instead of scrolling, save money instead of spending, it triggers discomfort because you're disrupting what your brain considers safe. This is the first psychological barrier to consistency: your brain chooses comfort over growth. And unless you understand this, you'll keep assuming you lack discipline when, in reality, your brain is simply doing what it was designed to do. But here's the twist: once you push past that initial discomfort, your brain begins to adapt. What felt difficult becomes normal. What felt forced becomes natural. And this is where consistency becomes powerful. The second barrier is something called the emotion trap. Most people make decisions based on how they feel in the moment. If they feel tired, they skip the workout. If they feel uninspired, they don't create. If they feel stressed, they abandon routines. But here's the truth: consistency is built by acting independent of emotion. You don't brush your teeth because you're motivated. You do it because it's part of your identity. It's automatic, emotionless, non-negotiable. The same thing happens when you embed new habits deeply enough, they stop requiring emotion and start becoming identity. That's how ordinary people transform, not by doing huge things once, but small things repeatedly until those actions become automatic. Another barrier is impatience. We live in a world that promotes instant gratification. Everything is quick: information, entertainment, food, communication. So when results don't show up immediately, people quit. They assume the habit isn't working. They forget that consistency is like planting seeds. Nothing grows at first. The soil looks unchanged. But underground, roots are forming. Foundations are being built. This early stage is where most people fall apart because they mistake silence for failure. But the ones who stay consistent, the ones who understand the silent growth phase, end up achieving results that look unbelievable to everyone else. Ordinary people become extraordinary because they survive the invisible stages that others run away from. The next barrier is overwhelm. Most people try to be perfectly consistent, which creates impossible expectations. They plan massive changes, huge routines, intense goals. But consistency doesn't grow from intensity, it grows from simplicity. From small, sustainable actions that compound over time. Reading 10 pages a day beats reading 200 pages once. Walking 20 minutes a day beats running 10 miles once a month. Saving a little consistently beats saving a lot inconsistently. Creating regularly beats creating occasionally. Consistency rewards those who choose small steps over dramatic leaps. The final barrier is identity conflict. Many people say, "I want to be consistent," but internally, they still identify as someone who struggles, someone who procrastinates, someone who quits early. And here's the truth: your habits will always follow your identity. If you believe you're inconsistent, you'll act inconsistent. Extraordinary results begin when you shift your identity, when you stop seeing yourself as someone who tries, and start seeing yourself as someone who shows up. To become consistent, you must first understand something powerful: your identity always wins. You can force habits for a short time, you can rely on motivation for a little while, but eventually your actions will return to the level of the identity you believe about yourself. If you see yourself as someone who can never stay consistent, your brain will subconsciously pull you back into behaviors that match that belief. If you think of yourself as a procrastinator, you will procrastinate. If you think of yourself as someone who quits, you will quit. Not because you want to, but because your mind is built to stay consistent with its own self-image. This is why the people who achieve extraordinary results do something most people never think about: they build their habits from identity, not willpower. Instead of saying, "I want to read more," they say, "I am a reader." Instead of saying, "I want to exercise," they say, "I am the type of person who trains daily." Instead of saying, "I want to save money," they say, "I am financially disciplined." Identity is the soil. Habits are the seeds. Consistency is the sunlight. When the soil is healthy, everything grows naturally. This is where the power of small wins becomes life-changing. Most people try to change their life through massive effort, but real transformation starts with micro-habits that reshape your identity. When you keep a small promise to yourself, no matter how tiny, you send a message to your subconscious: I can trust myself. I follow through. I am consistent. And each time you do this, your identity strengthens. Your confidence rises. Your belief grows. This is the compounding effect of consistency, not the result itself, but the person you become in the process. Let's talk about the science behind this. Your brain has something called evidence loops. It collects evidence from your actions and uses that evidence to build or destroy your identity. Every time you take consistent action, even a small one, you create positive evidence. And the more evidence you build, the easier consistency becomes. This is why people who struggle with consistency often spiral downward. They skip one day, then another, then they identify themselves as inconsistent, and the evidence stacks against them. But the reverse is also true. If you start stacking wins, your identity shifts upward. You feel more disciplined, more capable, more powerful. And consistency becomes your default, not your struggle. Now let's talk about the truth nobody likes to hear. Consistency requires boredom. Extraordinary achievers aren't always more talented, they're simply more willing to repeat the basics without needing to be entertained. They do the unglamorous work. They follow the routine even when it feels dull. They understand that greatness hides behind the boring tasks that others avoid. The gym. The writing. The studying. The saving. The daily practice. The repeating. Consistency is not exciting day to day, but it is absolutely magical year to year. Because here's the real secret: consistency doesn't add up, consistency multiplies. A one improvement repeated every day doesn't just make you 365 better by the end of the year. Behaviors compound. Skills compound. Confidence compounds. Your entire life compounds. Ordinary people transform into extraordinary versions of themselves not because they do massive things, but because they do small things long enough for the world to call it mastery. If identity is the foundation of consistency, then systems are the structure that holds everything together. Motivation may spark action, identity may guide action, but systems sustain action. Systems turn your life into a series of intentional routines instead of emotional reactions. Systems remove the need for willpower and replace it with automatic behavior. Because here's the truth: the most consistent people are not the most disciplined, they are the most structured. They don't wake up wondering what to do. They don't negotiate with themselves. They don't depend on inspiration. They build routines that make progress inevitable. Let's break down the system every consistent person builds, whether consciously or not. 1. A trigger that starts the habit automatically. Every habit begins with a cue, a trigger that signals your brain to begin the behavior. Consistent people engineer these triggers into their daily life. A glass of water next to the bed triggers hydration. Gym clothes laid out at night trigger morning workouts. A book placed on the pillow triggers nighttime reading. A tidy desk triggers productive work. The easier the trigger, the faster the habit forms. The fewer steps required, the more likely you are to follow through. This is why most people fail. They rely on internal motivation rather than external cues. But consistent people design their environment to do the work for them. 2. A routine that has zero negotiation. Consistent people don't ask themselves, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They follow systems that don't depend on emotion. They choose a set time, a set duration, a set process. This eliminates decision fatigue, the silent killer of consistency. Inconsistent people waste energy thinking, "When should I do it? How long should I do it? Should I do it today or tomorrow?" Consistent people decide once and repeat forever. 3. A reward that reinforces the identity. Humans repeat what feels good. Even small rewards reprogram the brain to crave the habit. The reward doesn't need to be dramatic. Checking off a habit tracker, writing completed in a journal, a moment of pride, a small celebration, a positive affirmation, a mental pat on the back. Your brain doesn't care how small the reward is, it only cares that the loop feels satisfying. Want a powerful trick? After every successful routine, say out loud, "See? I am consistent." You're not just reinforcing the habit, you're reinforcing the identity behind the habit. For a system that makes missing a day nearly impossible. Consistent people aren't perfect. They don't avoid failure, they plan for it. They create backup systems. If they miss the gym, they walk. If they can't read 20 pages, they read 5. If they don't have an hour to work, they use 10 minutes. This is called the minimum action rule, and it is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever use. Why? Because doing a tiny version of the habit keeps your identity intact. Once identity breaks, consistency collapses. But when identity stays intact, momentum continues. 5. Environment engineering. Your environment either fuels your habits or destroys them. Consistent people optimize their surroundings. They remove junk food if they want to eat healthy. They silence notifications to stay focused. They avoid negative people to stay disciplined. They create workspaces they actually want to be in. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. If you live in a distracting environment, you'll be inconsistent no matter how motivated you are. But if you live in an environment built for success, success becomes the default. 6. A commitment to long-term thinking. Consistent people don't obsess over short-term results. They know that progress is a long game, and they act accordingly. Inconsistent people quit because they don't see results fast enough. Consistent people keep going because they know results are inevitable. They trust the process even when it's quiet. They believe in the compounding effect even before it shows. They stay focused on the identity, not the instant gratification. And here's the beautiful thing: once your system is in place, consistency becomes effortless. You're no longer fighting your own mind. You're no longer relying on unstable motivation. Your environment supports you. Your routines guide you. Your identity fuels you. You've engineered a life where progress happens automatically. Here's where the real magic of consistency begins: the compound effect. The part of the journey where tiny actions, which once seemed insignificant, begin to snowball into results that feel almost unbelievable. This is the moment where ordinary people begin to look extraordinary from the outside, even though on the inside, they're simply doing what they've always done, showing up. Consistency feels slow in the beginning. It feels invisible. It feels like nothing is changing. But that's because the early stages are like planting seeds. The soil looks the same. The surface doesn't move. The roots grow in silence. And while nothing seems to be happening, everything is happening. That's how the compound effect works. Respect the roots before you see the growth. Let's break down the stages of this invisible transformation. Stage 1, the effort phase. No results yet. This is where 99% of people quit. You start a new habit: working out, reading, saving, learning, and nothing happens at first. The scale doesn't move. Your skills don't improve noticeably. Your savings look tiny. The business grows slowly. It's here where your mind tries to deceive you: this isn't working. Why bother? You're wasting time. But this is the test. Consistency isn't building results yet, it's building you. Your discipline. Your belief. Your identity. Your resilience. This stage is frustrating. But it's also essential. The roots are growing. Stage 2, the momentum phase. Small results, then something shifts. The workout feels slightly easier. Your reading comprehension improves. Your savings start to look respectable. Your skill becomes smoother. Your mental clarity improves. Your business gets small wins. These results are still small, but they're undeniable. And that's when consistency begins to feel rewarding. This is where you say to yourself, I'm changing. It's working. I'm becoming someone new. Momentum is born. Not from speed, but from direction. Stage 3, the acceleration phase. Visible progress. The people around you start noticing. You look healthier. You seem more focused. You're getting better at this. You've changed your habits. Your progress becomes visible, measurable, real. Because at this point, consistency is no longer something you do, it has become part of who you are. You're operating from identity, not effort. This is where the compound effect takes over. You get better because you've been consistent. And you stay consistent because you're getting better. Progress feeds consistency. Consistency accelerates progress. The cycle becomes unstoppable. Stage 4, the transformation phase, breakthrough results. This is the part that feels like a miracle. Suddenly, everything compounds at once, your fitness skyrockets. Your skill becomes mastery. Your wealth multiplies. Your business expands. Your productivity peaks. Your confidence explodes. People call you gifted, talented, naturally disciplined. But they don't see the truth. You're just someone who didn't quit during the silent phases. This is the stage where ordinary people become extraordinary. Not because they were special, but because they respected the process. Why consistency creates breakthroughs? Because consistency compounds three things simultaneously. 1. Skills repetition makes you sharper, faster, and more efficient. 2. Identity each win reinforces the belief that you can succeed. 3. Results small gains multiply into massive outcomes over time. This triple compounding effect is the reason consistency beats talent, luck, perfection, and motivation every single time. The hidden benefit: consistency builds confidence. When you keep promises to yourself, something incredible happens. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to rely on your own discipline. You begin to believe in your own ability to follow through. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Confidence is not built by compliments. It's built by consistency. If consistency is easy when life is calm, the real test comes when everything around you becomes chaotic, when your schedule gets busy, when stress hits, when emotions fluctuate, when motivation disappears, when unexpected problems interrupt your routines. This is where most people fall apart. Not because they don't want to stay consistent, but because they never learned the deeper skill: sustainable consistency. Sustainable consistency means staying committed even when life isn't cooperating. It means understanding that the world will never give you perfect conditions, and your habits cannot depend on circumstances being convenient. Here's something powerful to remember: consistency isn't what you do on your best days, it's what you continue doing on your worst days. High performers don't avoid hard days. They plan for them. They expect them. They build systems that protect their progress even in chaos. Let's break down the principles that allow consistent people to stay on track for life, not just for a week or a month. 1. They follow the never zero rule. The most consistent people on the planet follow one simple principle: never let a day go to zero. Even if you're sick, busy, exhausted, or emotionally drained, you do the smallest possible version of the habit. Can't work out? Do 10 push-ups. Can't read 20 pages? Read 2 pages. Can't save big? Save a little. Can't practice an hour? Practice 5 minutes. Why does this work? Because consistency is more about maintaining identity than perfect performance. When you tell yourself, "I still showed up," you protect the most important thing: your belief. Skipping once is a mistake. Skipping twice is a pattern. Skipping 3 times is a new identity. 2. They use systems, not feelings. Most people rely on emotion to guide their habits. If I feel motivated, I'll do it. If I feel energetic, I'll start. If I feel inspired, I'll commit. But consistent people operate differently. I do it because it's who I am. I show up no matter what. I follow the system, not the mood. You don't become reliable by feeling good, you become reliable by repeatable systems. Same routine, same time, same trigger, same minimum action. Consistency grows when decision-making disappears. 3. They expect setbacks and build emotional resilience. Most people quit because they believe setbacks mean failure. But to consistent people, setbacks are normal. Expected. Unavoidable. Just part of the process. They don't punish themselves when they slip. They don't spiral into guilt. They don't restart with perfectionist pressure. They simply adjust and continue. Resilience perfection. You don't need to be flawless, you need to be flexible. 4. They adjust the routine when life changes. Sustainable consistency is adaptable. Your habits must evolve with your life. If you become a parent, if your work schedule changes, if you travel, if you're recovering, if your responsibilities increase. Most people quit consistency because their life changed, but consistent people change the system, not the goal. They shorten the routine. Shift the time. Modify the intensity. Redesign the schedule. The routine evolves, but the identity remains. 5. They focus on streaks, not perfection. Streaks create momentum. Momentum creates pride. Pride creates identity. Identity creates discipline. Discipline creates results. A streak is living proof of commitment. Even small streaks, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, rebuild your self-image and make quitting emotionally harder. Consistency thrives when you protect your streak like it matters. Because it does. 6. They don't try to change too many things at once. Trying to overhaul your entire life overnight guarantees inconsistency. That's why the most successful people focus on 1 or 2 core habits at a time. Why? Because mastery requires attention. And your brain only adapts to new routines when you give them space to grow. When you try to change too much, you overwhelm the system. When you focus deeply, you build momentum. 7. They reconnect with their why. Motivation alone won't save you, but your why will. When you know exactly why you're trying to be consistent, health, freedom, confidence, legacy, impact, peace, strength, purpose, your habits carry emotional weight. They stop being chores and start being commitments. People who quit forget their why. People who succeed revisit it daily. This is what sustainable consistency looks like. Not perfection. Not intensity. Not heroics. Just identity, systems, and adaptability. Consistency does more than build skills, habits, or results. It rebuilds something far more powerful: your mind. Your belief system. Your self-worth. Your inner identity. And this is where ordinary people make the leap into extraordinary territory. Because consistency doesn't just change what you do. Consistency changes who you are. Let's break down exactly how this inner transformation unfolds, because once you understand this, you'll realize why consistency is the greatest form of self-love, self-respect, and self-empowerment you will ever develop. 1. Consistency rewrites your self-image. Most people fail in life not because they lack potential, but because they have a weak self-image. They see themselves through the lens of past failures. I'm not disciplined. I always quit. I'm not good at this. I can't stick to anything. But when you stay consistent even in small ways, you start rewriting this identity. Every day you show up, you silently tell yourself, I can rely on me. I am disciplined. I keep my promises. I control my life. And when your beliefs about yourself change, everything changes. You stop acting like the old version of you. You stop accepting what you used to accept. You start living as the person you've always wanted to become. Because you now have evidence that you can. Consistency builds that evidence. 2. Consistency builds internal trust. Think about this. How can you trust someone who constantly breaks promises? You can't. And the same applies to your relationship with yourself. Every time you say you'll do something, and you don't, you weaken the bond between you and your mind. Your brain stops believing you. Your confidence drops. You lose emotional power. But each time you follow through, something incredible happens. You rebuild that trust. Day by day. Promise by promise. Habit by habit. Trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes strength. strength becomes momentum. This is internal power, the kind no one can take away from you. 3.
Consistency reduces anxiety and overthinking. Most people don't realize this, but inconsistency is one of the biggest causes of mental chaos.
When your life lacks structure, your mind stays in survival mode. What should I do first? Why can't I stick to anything? What if I fail again?
I'm always behind, but a consistent routine creates mental order.
It reduces uncertainty, which reduces stress. It eliminates decision fatigue, which reduces anxiety.
It creates predictability, which increases stability.
Consistency gives your brain a script, a rhythm, a pattern, a sense of control. When your actions are consistent, your mind becomes calm. 4.
Consistency strengthens willpower over time. Willpower is like a muscle, it grows when you use it correctly. When you stay consistent, your cravings weaken, your distractions lose power, your emotions become manageable, your discipline becomes automatic. Over time, you develop something called self-command, the ability to do what's required regardless of how you feel. And when you master self-command, you become unstoppable.
Because now, you choose discipline over impulse. You choose progress over comfort. You choose purpose over pleasure. Most people never experience this feeling. It's the internal freedom that comes from being in control of your own mind. 5. Consistency creates emotional stability. This one is huge.
People who are inconsistent often feel guilty, disappointed in themselves, overwhelmed, ashamed, frustrated, stuck. These emotions weigh heavily on your mental health. But when you're consistent, you begin to feel proud, confident, capable, grounded, motivated, empowered. This emotional shift doesn't happen through motivational videos or inspirational quotes.
It happens through proof. Proof that you can grow. Proof that you can change. Proof that you are capable of more than you ever believed. Consistency is emotional therapy disguised as daily effort.
6. Consistency creates a new identity loop. This is where everything ties together.
When you act consistently, you change your beliefs. When your beliefs change, you change your identity.
When your identity changes, your habits become natural. When your habits become natural, you become consistent without trying. It becomes a cycle: action, evidence, belief, identity, automatic action. This is the psychological formula that turns ordinary people into extraordinary ones.
Not luck. Not talent. Not genetics. Identity. Repetition. Evidence. Belief. Consistency. Success rarely happens in a sudden explosion.
It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, built through ordinary days, small decisions, and consistent effort that compounds over time. This is the part of the journey where consistency turns into mastery, and mastery turns into results that seem unbelievable to everyone else.
Because here's the truth: consistency beats talent when talent isn't consistent. Consistency beats motivation because motivation fades. And consistency beats luck because luck cannot be repeated, but your habits can.
In this part, we're going to break down how consistency creates long-term success across every area of life and why it's the single greatest advantage an ordinary person can develop.
1.
Consistency creates skill progression. Every skill in the world, whether physical, mental, artistic, or professional, follows the same rule: repetition builds skill.
Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds excellence. Excellence builds success.
It's impossible to stay consistent at something without improving, even if the improvement starts small.
5 minutes of practice a day builds muscle memory. Daily writing sharpens creativity and clarity. Consistent reading expands your knowledge faster than you realize. Regular workouts build strength and endurance over time. Your brain adapts. Your ability grows. Your competence increases.
And eventually, you cross that invisible threshold where you're no longer trying to get better, you simply are better.
This is the power of accumulated skill, small improvements multiplied over hundreds of days. 2. Consistency creates lifestyle momentum. Success is not one giant action. It's a lifestyle.
When you do something every day, even in small amounts, you build momentum.
Momentum is powerful because it reduces resistance. It makes habits easier. It lowers the friction between intention and action. You know that feeling when you miss one day and suddenly miss 3? That's negative momentum.
But when you repeat your habit daily, even imperfectly, the opposite happens. You build positive momentum, where showing up becomes easier and skipping becomes harder.
This momentum is the force that pushes ordinary people into extraordinary results. 3. Consistency compounds like interest. This is the secret behind the world's greatest athletes, businesspeople, creators, and innovators. They understand that daily 1 improvements grow exponentially over time. 1 better eating, 1 better work, 1 better discipline, 1 better habits, 1 better routines. These tiny improvements compound into massive transformation. Remember this: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
And consistency makes your systems unbreakable. For consistency creates opportunities you can't predict. The longer you stay consistent, the more opportunities appear. You meet the right people.
You get noticed by the right audience.
You receive unexpected messages, offers, or collaborations.
Your work begins attracting attention. You start getting results you never saw coming.
People think success comes from huge leaps, but most breakthroughs come from the slow pressure of consistency, building a foundation that the world finally recognizes. This is why quitting early kills dreams. You never know how close you were to the tipping point.
5.
Consistency keeps you ahead of everyone who starts and stops. Most people are inconsistent.
They start strong and disappear.
They promise big changes and fall back to old habits. They jump from goal to goal without sticking long enough to see results. You become extraordinary simply by doing what others won't, showing up day after day after day.
Even if you're not the best. Even if you're not the fastest learner. Even if you're not the most talented. If you are consistent, you will surpass almost everyone around you. Consistency is the great equalizer.
6. Consistency turns ordinary lives into extraordinary stories. Every incredible success story you've heard has a hidden timeline behind it: years of practice,
months of doubt,
weeks of no progress,
counts of boring repetition. People see the highlight, not the habit. The reward, not the routine. The glory, not the grind. But behind every seemingly overnight success is a person who stayed consistent long after others quit. That's why consistency is so powerful. It transforms people quietly, steadily, permanently. You don't just achieve goals, you evolve. You don't just grow skills, you build character. You don't just create results, you change your identity. Consistency doesn't just shape your future, it shapes your story. Consistency is like a spark. Once it ignites in one area of your life, it spreads everywhere. Most people believe habits exist in isolation, but the truth is far more powerful. Consistency in one discipline elevates every other part of your life. It creates a ripple effect that turns into a full identity shift, transforming you from the inside out. Let's break down how this ripple effect works, because once you understand it, you'll realize why building one consistent habit can change your entire life, even if you don't realize it at first. 1.
Consistency in health improves your productivity. When you start eating better, moving your body, or sleeping consistently, your energy rises. And when your energy rises, your productivity increases automatically. You think clearer. You work faster. You make better decisions. You avoid procrastination. A stronger body creates a stronger mind. And a stronger mind creates stronger habits. This is why people who begin with fitness often see improvements in work, creativity, business, and even money. It's not the gym that changes you, it's the identity you build by showing up. 2. Consistency in work builds confidence in every area. When you consistently work on your craft, skills, or career, something powerful happens. You begin to believe in your ability to grow. That confidence spills over into every other part of your life. You speak with more certainty. You face challenges with courage. You stop doubting yourself so easily. You take more calculated risks. Confidence is not built by compliments, it's built by proof. And the proof comes from consistency. Once you trust your ability to improve, fear loses its power. 3. Consistency in mindset strengthens your emotional stability. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you journal. Maybe you read daily. Maybe you practice gratitude. These mindset habits don't just make you feel good, they strengthen your emotional resilience. They help you respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. They help you think logically during stressful moments. And this emotional stability transforms everything: relationships, decision-making, discipline, problem-solving, confidence under pressure. When your mind is steady, your life becomes steady. 4. Consistency in finances teaches discipline. Saving consistently, even small amounts, teaches delayed gratification. Investing consistently teaches patience. Budgeting consistently teaches self-control. These financial habits strengthen your discipline in other areas too: eating, working out, studying, working, staying focused. Discipline is not limited to one part of life. Discipline is a mindset, and it spreads everywhere. 5. Consistency in creativity elevates your thinking. If you draw, write, design, build, record, practice an instrument, or create content consistently, you train your brain to think deeper, faster, more imaginatively, more analytically. Creativity strengthens problem solving. Problem solving strengthens confidence. Confidence strengthens ambition. This is why people who create consistently begin seeing solutions others can't see. Their mind has become trained to break limits. 6. Consistency in relationships deepens your connections. Consistently communicating. Consistently showing up. Consistently keeping your word. Consistently being present. These small acts build trust. And trust deepens connection. Whether it's friendships, family, or romantic relationships, consistency shows reliability. And reliability builds love, respect, and emotional safety. Consistency makes you a stable force in people's lives, and stable people build strong relationships. 7. Consistency in self-care heals self-worth. Doing small things for yourself every day, cleaning your space, taking care of your skin, keeping your environment organized, speaking kindly to yourself reinforces one powerful message: I am worth taking care of. That message alone can change your entire life. Because when you truly believe you deserve good things, you stop accepting disrespect, tolerating chaos, settling for less, sabotaging your progress, ignoring your needs. Self-care consistency builds self-worth. Self-worth builds better choices. Better choices build a better life. 8. Consistency creates identity momentum. Here's the biggest ripple effect of all: when you're consistent in one habit, you start thinking of yourself as a consistent person. Once that identity forms, every new habit becomes easier. Why? Because your brain hates being inconsistent with its own identity. If you believe, I'm someone who keeps promises, then skipping habits feels unnatural. If you believe, I'm disciplined, then laziness feels uncomfortable. If you believe, I'm improving every day, then stagnation isn't acceptable. Identity momentum is unstoppable. It turns small actions into a lifestyle. It turns habits into character. It turns consistency into destiny. There's a moment on every consistency journey that almost no one talks about, a moment so powerful that once you reach it, your entire relationship with discipline, habits, and success changes forever. This moment is called the emotional tipping point. It's the moment where consistency stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like identity. Where effort turns into instinct. Where discipline becomes natural. Where the actions you once forced yourself to do become the actions you can't imagine living without. This is the point where extraordinary results begin. Let's break down exactly what happens when you reach the emotional tipping point and why this is the turning point that separates people who try from people who transform. 1. The habit becomes enjoyable, not exhausting at first.
consistency feels tiring. You fight resistance. You negotiate with yourself. You battle excuses. You push through mental friction. But when you reach the tipping point, something flips internally. Workouts feel good. Learning feels exciting. Routines feel grounding. Discipline feels empowering. Structure feels freeing. You're no longer forcing the habit. You're craving the habit. This is when progress becomes effortless. 2. The action becomes automatic at the tipping point. Your brain moves the habit from the effort region to the automatic region. This is neuroscience. Your brain literally rewires itself. You no longer think, should I? You simply do. Like brushing your teeth. Like locking the door. Like checking your planner. Like preparing your workspace. Consistency becomes as automatic as breathing. This is why consistent people seem superhuman. They're not. Their habits have simply become effortless. 3. The identity locks in. This is the most powerful shift. Before the tipping point, your brain says, I'm trying to be consistent. After the tipping point, it says, I am consistent. Identity always wins. Once your identity changes, your actions follow with ease. You no longer try to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You no longer try to be healthy, you are healthy. You no longer try to be productive, you are productive. Identity becomes the engine behind the habit. 4. The emotional resistance disappears before the tipping point. You battle emotions, laziness, frustration, boredom, doubt, stress, procrastination. After the tipping point, these emotions lose their power. You might feel tired, stressed, or unmotivated, but you still show up. The emotions exist, but they no longer control your actions. This emotional freedom is one of life's greatest superpowers. 5. Results multiply faster than you expected. This is where the compounding effect accelerates. The results begin stacking rapidly, your body changes faster. Your skills sharpen quicker. Your productivity skyrockets. Your clarity intensifies. Your focus deepens. Your opportunities increase. Momentum becomes exponential. People will look at you and say, you're so lucky. You're naturally disciplined. I wish I had your drive. They don't understand that what they're seeing is your tipping point, not your beginning. 6. You fear losing your momentum more than doing the work. This is where you truly know you've changed. Before the tipping point, you worry about doing the habit. After the tipping point, you worry about not doing the habit. Why? Because you've experienced the rewards. You've experienced the growth. You've experienced the transformation. The habit isn't something you do, it's part of your identity, your peace, your confidence, your structure. Losing the habit would mean losing part of yourself. 7. You become an example without trying. People start noticing. They see your consistency. They see your discipline. They see your progress. You inspire without speaking. You motivate without teaching. You lead without intending to lead. Your consistency becomes a silent influence, changing not just you, but everyone around you. This is the ripple effect of personal discipline. 8. Life feels lighter, not heavier when your habits run on autopilot. You save mental energy, you reduce decision fatigue, you eliminate guilt, you strengthen emotional stability, you create predictability, you feel grounded. Life becomes smoother, simpler, calmer, more controlled. This is the peace that consistency brings. Why the emotional tipping point matters? Because this is the moment where you stop trying to change your life and actually live the new life. The tipping point transforms consistency from a struggle into a strength, from a task into a trait, from an effort into an identity. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary results. Not overnight. Not suddenly. Not magically.
Through consistency long enough, deep enough, strong enough to reach the moment where everything becomes easier.